Has Ben McAdoo lost control of the New York Football Giants?
I think the question, maybe a more fair question, is did he ever have it? Was he ever in full control of this team? I want to ask Chris a question about the Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie thing, because something that was kind of lost in the shuffle of this is he left the field during the game this past week.
Yeah, in the third quarter.
Okay. I mean, I watched that football game. That was a close football game. It's not like there's a blowout. All right. So how rare is that? A player that's a starting player, an important player, one of the highest paid players on the team, or maybe from any player, just be like, you know what, I'm out here. This is not, I'm out. I'm not happy.
I've never heard of an NFL player leaving in the middle of a game. I've heard of a few players at the end of the game, there was a little bit of time, and they walked off the field. But this situation is a new one to me.
Okay. So he leaves the facility during the week. I assume that does happen sometimes. Guys that are upset with something the coach said, they leave, or am I wrong?
No, that happens. That happens a lot.
Okay. So to me, this is indicative of a bigger problem, which is these guys, it would appear, have never gained a healthy respect for their coach. And maybe that's me being unfair. I don't think these guys like Tom Coughlin that much, but it was pretty clear to me, certainly early in his tenure, and I think even late in the tenure, they respected him. Not just because of the championships, but just because of kind of the cachet he carried around with him.
Right. There's a number of things NFL players are looking for. Number one thing is that they're looking to get coached so they can become better. All right? Now, there's a true level of respect between the players and the coaches. The coaches demand it, and the players. They're not college, they're not high school, they're grown men. Like, as a grown man, I expect to be respected by my coaches. Now, people are just assuming that all these Giants have all this long history with Ben McAdoo, but they don't. They hired the defense. They went out and acquired only a few players that they drafted. They went out in free agency and built that defense. All right. For Spagnuolo, who's the defensive coordinator. All right? So that's one issue. McAdoo had only worked with the offensive players, a couple of the offensive linemen, Eli, and Odell. So saying that he ever had control of the team, like, we're giving him more credit than what we thought. This didn't just happen this weekend. You know, I'm glad that Odell's hurt. You know why? Because you can't blame him. All right? Because that was the problem before. It's the kid with the yellow hair. He's the problem. He's the dysfunction. The Giants been going through this for about 3 years. It started with Tom Coughlin. Stink and I talked about it. The fight, the encounter, the personal fouls with Josh Norman. Guess who sat there ringside seat? Tom Coughlin, one of the best disciplinarians we've ever had. Tom Coughlin had lost that team. The reason why he's not coaching the Giants, because they think he didn't have control. It wasn't because he's too old. He's in Jacksonville working. One of the problems, and tell me if I'm wrong here, one of the problems with if you fire Tom Coughlin, or however they phrased it, you know, they didn't renew services with Tom Coughlin.
Yes.
Get rid of Tom Coughlin. Why did Tom Coughlin start going out looking for jobs and interviewing with people?
Right, well, but
immediately.
Right. But the thing is this, if those are the reasons, then how, if the general has lost control of the army, to mix metaphors, you can't just keep, or you can't have the two lieutenant generals just take over.
The only way you do that, unless you think one of the lieutenants is really special.
And if people don't know, Steve Spagnuolo was Tom Coughlin's defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Ben McAdoo was his offensive coordinator.
Yes, Spagnuolo has been a head coach before in the league, unsuccessfully.
McAdoo just absorbed Tom Coughlin's job, essentially. Spagnuolo said where it was. And that's where the team, I think, needed to be more honest about who it was. Prior to that 11-win season, that I have to be the first to admit, tricked me more than tricked just about anybody. But prior to that 11-win season, in the previous 7 years, this Giants team never lost more than 10 games, never won more than 10 games. In those 7 years, they played 102 games. You know what they were? 50-52.
Yep.
One game off from being dead average. And so they don't tear it all down. They're like, yeah, we're okay, and we still have the quarterback. We have this really special wide receiver. We're going to spend $250 million on acquiring a defense. And through 1 year, it looked really smart. Through 2 years, it looks disastrous.
Yeah, and the reason why is you couldn't see all the warts. You couldn't see the moles. You couldn't see that they needed an eye lift. They needed a chin replacement. It's because they got a couple Super Bowls. 2 of the most dramatic Super Bowls ever. So we forgot about
In
the
that 7-year stretch, I should have mentioned they did win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
I mean, so that helps cover up. Like, organizations, most of them would take, except New England, over a 5 to 7 year, you're going to be 500, but you're going to win the Super Bowl. They'll sign me up. Let me get some of that. So people thinking that the Giants were in good shape when they hired McAdoo, they weren't really watching the NFL and understanding what was really going on with the team at the current time.
It feels like they're desperate for a better leader. It feels like you watch the games, and it just feels like you want the Tom Coughlin you saw in the early years, when they were like afraid of the guy, when they didn't like, when they respected the guy. That's how it feels.
Listen, there's a thin line between fear and respect. Tom Coughlin was a great coach, but the players and the message that he was given, the players couldn't receive it. And the Giants, what they thought they were doing, were going to stay in-house. They didn't realize all the problems they had and were going to occur by hiring in-house, all right? Their defense, they're hired guns. They're independent contractors. They're each guy's getting their money. Olivia Vernon, he ain't got no Giants pride. Nothing against him.
Janoris Jenkins, Dominic Rodgers, the whole
and no chemistry.
the whole line.
Right. So when McAdoo comes to DRC in the third quarter and he's getting ready to bench him, and he's like, man, I don't think, first of all, I think I'm playing out of position the nickel. Eli Apple, the younger player, they'd like someone else to play the slot. DRC likes to play outside with Janoris Jenkins. That's the spot that he's played most, but being the veteran, 10 years, they're going to let the first rounder play in the easier spot. DRC didn't like it, so they had a dust-up on the sideline. Rumor has it that he called Ben McAdoo McAdoo on the sideline, which led to
pro athletes.
which made him go to the locker room and eventually come out back and join the team. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.